For 17-year-old Njeng'ere, France was always the land of his dreams. A year and a half ago, the young Ivorian striker had what seemed like a huge stroke of luck. He was spotted by a talent scout in Abidjan and given the chance and the travel money to go for trials at Havre Athletic Club, a French second league team. He arrived in France last September, underage and alone. At the trial, he didn't make the cut, but he didn't want to go back. With nowhere to go, he stopped strangers until a fellow Ivorian gave him a place to stay. Now an illegal immigrant, he didn't want us to use his full name.
My agent asked me to see if I could find someone to move in with here, to not go home, so that he can try to find me another team here. That's how it happened. He said he would do everything to find me another club to play with, so that all these get sorted out. But I didn't know anyone here, so I was quite alone.
Havre Athletic Club is almost 140 years old, and in spite of its League Two status, enjoys high prestige. The club say that around 4 to 5 African players try out here each year, and at the moment there's only one non-French player in their training program, although the team does field 6 African players. According to club president Jean-Pierre Louvel, there are around 10 agents in 8 African countries who regularly send talent the club's way, and the agents take full responsibility for the players. So what happens to minors like Njeng'ere after they're turned down isn't really the club's problem.
Dans ce cadre de ce dossier de Njeng'ere,
in these cases, there's no question that the person who finds us the player also takes care of his tickets and brings him as far as Paris. That's where we met him, and after the trials we took him back to Paris, so that he could return to Ivory Coast. And according to our files, he did go back home. So in this regard, we don't have a problem when it comes to this player, although you might want to ask yourself why he returned to France, or whether it's really him who's here. Because sometimes there are also cases of stolen identity among players.
FIFA has tightened its rules so that clubs can no longer sell or transfer underage players, and minors selected abroad for training now must have their families move with them. But there's little legislation covering the agents, so technically no one has to make sure that players who don't get selected return home. Emmanuel Penda works with a charity called Football Solidarity, which helps immigrant players and tries to publicize what they say is quite simply human trafficking. Today, he's taking Njeng'ere to get some advice from a lawyer.
C'est quelqu'un d'abord qui connaît bien le monde du sport et plus particulièrement du football, puisque lui-même l'en a joué.
This lawyer knows the sports world well, especially football. He has played soccer and is a good player. He's very sensitive to these kinds of issues that affect international football. We are trying not to make any legal mistakes, so we have the privilege of being represented by him.
Il y avait des gens qui sont venus vous accueillir à Paris, non?
Ouais, c'est là que j'ai vu. Il n'y avait personne. Donc en tête, je me suis dit, je suis un pays francophone, je vais au Havre.
Et là, aujourd'hui, votre situation, c'est quoi? Vous êtes clandestin, vous n'avez rien. Vous avez votre passeport?
Ben, j'ai mon passeport.
D'accord. Mais vous n'avez pas de billet retour. Ouais. Et votre objectif, vous voulez faire quoi maintenant?
Ben, moi, maintenant, c'est avec l'appui
de l'association, oui.
Intégrer une autre équipe.
Vous avez envie de
rester ici.
Rester ici en France.
Oui.
Si vous restez en France, il faut avoir un visa de long séjour, obtenu déjà à l'origine, c'est-à-dire dans votre pays d'origine. Ce qui n'est pas le cas. Je pense que vous avez venir avec un visa de court séjour. Donc ça ne vous permet pas de rester en France.
Il y a plein d'Africains, de jeunes Africains, mineurs qui arrivent en Europe. D'ailleurs,
there are many youngsters who come to Europe, which makes me wonder why the French authorities, consulates and European authorities issue them with visas, knowing they will certainly fail, as there are thousands of cases. The problem is that there are no regulations that require agents to take care of their return, which is very sad.
À s'occuper même du retour du joueur, c'est dommage, c'est dommage.
Football Solidarity estimates that every year around 700 African players come to France for trials. Some, like Richard from Cameroon, don't get invited or scouted. Richard's family saved up nearly $5,000 to send him here, but the agent he hired to find him a club disappeared when they got to France. Although he played in Cameroon's first division, his dreams of making it as a professional footballer are rather bleak, and Football Solidarity advises him to go back home.
J'ai informé surtout le grand frère qui a été déçu de ma part. Il a dit non, tu n'as pas le droit et tout et tout.
I informed my older brother, who was very disappointed in me. My father does not want to talk to me, but at least my mum listens and answers the telephone when I call. But it's very difficult to go back. They had placed a lot of hope in me, and to them, failing is like disrespecting my parents. Deep down, it's very painful for me. Very painful.
Although for every success story there are hundreds of broken dreams, Africa's big stars like Togolese Emmanuel Adebayor continue to inspire thousands of football hopefuls. Adebayor was 15 when he was spotted by French club FC Metz and now plays for English Premier League club Manchester City. With Africa's big soccer stars back on the continent for the World Cup, Football Solidarity organized a press conference where the charity's president, Jean-Claude Mvouma, urged the media to show the problems too and not just the glory.
Dans ce monde du football, dans ce football auquel moi j'ai joué pendant 15 ans.
In this football world in which I have played for 15 years, there's a phenomenon that's taking on a dimension of child trafficking. So what we want, now that this World Cup is taking place in Africa, which will surely inspire more Africans to want to be footballers, is that FIFA makes some sort of gesture, that the football authorities look at this human rights issue, that they respect their health, their education and their families.
Many agree that a first step would be to hold more trials and provide more training in Africa. In fact, there are already opportunities for players like Njeng'ere. One of Ivory Coast's Premier League teams, Azek Mimosa, have their own academy which recruits talent locally and has produced some of the country's top players. Their partnership with Belgian club Beveren and now British club Charlton Athletic also means that it's a launchpad for some European club careers. Other clubs have set up charities to bring soccer to disadvantaged children, like Spain's current league winner Barcelona FC. This Solidarity Center for Education and Sport, as they call it, was inaugurated by club president Juan Laporta in Senegal last year. France's Minister for Sports, Ramayade, would like to see more people be able to access proper training on the continent.
À mon avis, l'éducation a un rôle fondamental. Ce que je veux dire par là, c'est que
football academies could help young people stay in their countries while playing their favorite sport. We should also take advantage of the extraordinary popularity of football so that young players can go to school. For example, in South Africa, the Diamba's Academy provides formal education, and then FIFA's Football for Hope Foundation provides AIDS education and public health programs.
But what Njeng'ere is after isn't a high school diploma of HIV/AIDS awareness. He wants to be famous like Didier Drogba, and having come this close, he's not about to give up now and go back home, even if it means living in a foreign country without his family and without papers.